Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel Favorites Flavor. My name is Favor. I'm so excited to see you guys today. I hope you guys like this video and I hope you subscribe if you haven't already. Today's video is the first video of 2026. I'm so excited for what this year is going to bring. But today's video is going to be about my December reading wrap up. December was a little bit of a mid-reading month for me, but still there are some really good books that I would like to discuss in this video. So I hope you guys enjoy and keep on watching. So let's get right into my stats. And as always, all of this stats are from Storygraph. If you guys are not already using Storygraph, please download it. It's a Black-owned reading tracking app that is like a lot more personal than Goodreads. I find it very user-friendly if you guys haven't tried it before. So let's get right into it. So in the month of December, I read 9 books. 2,370 pages, which is not bad because I read a lot of smaller books, and it also took me slightly longer to read some of the books that I did read. Most of the books I read were medium paced, which is pretty normal for me. 56% was medium paced, 33% was fast paced, and 11% slow paced. As far as the number of pages, 56% was under 300 pages, while 44% was between 300 and 499 pages. As far as nonfiction, I did read 2 nonfiction books, 22%, which was better than I usually do, but I can't even take credit for that because one of the books that I finished in December, I started reading it in November, so I don't know if that really counts. So my top genres were romance, literary, and contemporary. As far as format, I read 56% paperback, 11% audio, and 33% through my Kindle. My average rating overall between the 9 books was 3.61, which is why I said it was a little bit of a mid-reading month. Usually, I'm closer to like 4 stars across the board. So those were my stats. Now we're gonna get into the books that I actually did read. So the first one I read that I finished in December was 7 Days, 7 Dates, a Kwanzaa Holiday Story. So this is one that I read from Kindle. I rated this book at 3.25 stars. It could be a 3.5, but still no more than a 3.5. I said in my review that this was like a mature and wholesome romance. I enjoyed like how the Kwanzaa principles were sprinkled all into the book, but me personally, I found it a little linear. Like there was not, I mean, it did what it was supposed to do, but it's not a book that I feel like I would remember in a month's time, if that makes sense. I still recommend this if you're someone that's looking to read a non-Christmas holiday book, which is one of the reasons why I did pick this up. It was one of the, I think it's the only Kwanzaa related book that is available. If you guys know any other options, comment down below, but that's one of the main reasons why I picked up this book, and it is a novella. Next book I DNF. I read it, but like I DNF'd it, and this is one that I already talked about in my books that I DNF'd video. I think that was my last video that I posted, and that book is The Holidates by Brittany C. Cherry. And this book, I literally DNF'd at 47% because if you go online on Goodreads, I would say the ratings are like over 4 stars. Like there's at least 2 people I follow on Goodreads that rated that book 4 or 5 stars. So I was like, maybe I'm the issue, right? That's why I kept reading and reading and reading, and it just got to the 47% mark. I was just like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. This is about Holly. Her name is Holly. I think the book starts out with her getting left at the altar by her fiance to be with her best friend and co-author. And then she ends up meeting this grumpy restaurant owner because she like keeps going to his restaurant for like dates because she lives really close to the restaurant and stuff like that. But I just feel like my main issue with this book was, 1, it was cringy. 2, I found the female main character a little like immature for someone that was like 25 or 26. She definitely was acting like she was a young adult. A lot of the scenes and what happened just seemed very like manufactured and a little over the top. I did not have a good time reading this book. I literally had the audiobook and the digital book with Kindle, and I still couldn't finish it. And it's a book that I don't think I'm gonna go back to reading it. So the next book I read was Somewhere South to Land by Kai Alante. So this was an arc. It gets released sometime next year. This year. Let me check. It gets released April 21st. I believe this is one of the books that I mentioned in my anticipated releases video. I literally left a long ass review on Goodreads if you guys want to read it. But basically, I said this book pulled a lot of emotions out of me. I was so angry on the female main character's behalf. Just know that if you're going to be reading this book, it's a book that explores a lot of like complex and complicated family and friendship dynamics. Like, it's not an easy book to read. I ended up rating this book at 4 stars, but I also had to acknowledge that for the author to write such an unpopular character, she did a really good job. And this is a debut book too. I highly recommend it. This will be a good book club pick. And if you're someone that, like me, that was looking to read more books about friendships, and I definitely enjoyed it. Well, it wasn't an easy read, but I don't regret reading the book, and it's one that I would recommend, but recommend cautiously. Like, I wouldn't recommend to like a newbie reader or someone that doesn't enjoy literary fiction or contemporary fiction. I would say that that's this book. And there's also a lot of mentions of like mental health issues, so this book is packed. Like, it's packed. So the next book I did read in the month of December was Dominion by Addie E. Kitchens. I was hoping to like this book a lot more than I did, and I ended up rating it 3.25 stars. I listened to this mostly on audiobook. I found the audiobook like really good. Like, it felt like a production. The different narrators, like, it felt like they fit the characters that they were narrating. It's a short book too. It's definitely like 250 pages and under. I don't know. I can't really give feedback on this book because it's not like a type of genre that I read a lot of. I think it's more like domestic, black southern fiction type of book. It wasn't bad. Like, it did what it was supposed to do. Like, I guess I see why people like it, but I personally did not care for it. I rated 3.25 stars. My main issue was I did not like any single character in the book. Like, there was no one character that was like, oh, I'm rooting for this person. No, I didn't like any of them. The mama, the son, the wannabe girlfriend, nobody. If you're someone that is looking for a black southern fiction with like a ton of scandals and that sort of stuff, I would recommend it. And like I said, it was not a bad book because at no point did I feel like I wanted to DNF it. I kept reading it and I enjoyed my time reading it, I guess. So the next book I read in the month of December was Inheritance, a visual poem by Elizabeth Acevedo. So this was one of my 2 nonfiction books that I read in December, and I rated this book at 4 stars. I think it was also my shortest book that I read in 2025. I think it had to be like 48 pages or something. And I'll still be doing a 2025 reading wrap up or recap. Probably my next video too that I should be posting. This was a really good poem. And this is something that I think I want to do more of this year, is reading more poems. Aside from like memoirs, me personally, I feel like poems are like one of the easiest ways for me to incorporate nonfiction. I don't think I can like go heading into like nonfiction books. I have to start with like memoirs and poems and stuff like that, and definitely Inheritance was a good one. So the next book that I finished was one that I started literally November 8th and I finished it December 14th. Yeah. All About Love by Bell Hooks. Obviously, I took breaks in between. I wasn't like reading the book the whole time, but this is why I said nonfiction is hard for me to read. All About Love, I ended up rating it 3 stars. I didn't know like rating it. I feel like I'm still gonna get a copy for myself. I think I did mention it in my anticipated releases video where books that are on my wish list, and I want to get this book again and actually annotate, like read some parts of it again. It wasn't like a bad book. Obviously, for a book published in 1999, it's not gonna be the way I feel like I envisioned it to be. Plus, it's nonfiction, so like not surprising. I read it because of my book club. We're still not discussed it yet. I think we're going to be discussing it at the end of January with another book that we're reading in the month of January. Not a bad book. Will I recommend it? Yeah. And it's a smaller book, so, but definitely one that felt more like a dissertation, like a textbook. as opposed to like a book. I don't know if that's just like how nonfiction is in general, or that's just this book, but still a book that I totally recommend if you guys are interested in something like that. So the next book I read in the month of December was Christmas in Spite of You by Casey Mills. I read this book at 4 stars. I had a decent time with this book. Like, I would totally recommend it. This whole book is basically like forced proximity. The female main character, I think her name was Noelle, she already planned to rent her apartment on Airbnb because she thought she was going to go home, but turns out she couldn't go home anymore for reasons that will be mentioned in the book. But the guy's like, well, I need to stay at this place there's a contract I'm trying to get, and he lives in your building type of situation. So they end up making an agreement because she needs his money. She wasn't really trying to return his money. They made an agreement to stay together, and he had most of the house and she got to keep her bedroom and all that. And how, you know, he was like, I'm not a Christmas person. She's like the most Christmas person there was. So I really, really recommend the book. I had a good time with it. The next book I read was A Holly Jolly Diwali by Sonia Lally. I read this book at 2.75 stars, and it was one of the books that I mentioned in my books I DNF'd or should have DNF'd video. I said this book was a boring romance and not enough Diwali holiday scenes in the book. I was expecting more from this book. It wasn't horrible, but it felt more like YA-ish, and the female main character herself was like, I want to say 27, 28, like late 20s. I don't know, I just didn't care for the romance or how things went with the book. Like, it wasn't a horrible book, but I definitely could have done without reading the book, if that makes sense. And I had the audiobook, so it just worked out. It was one of those books where, like I told you, if I have the audiobooks and I'm having like a busy week/weekend, I'm gonna go towards the audiobook first, and this was just the book that ended up being available. The next book I read was Kin by Terry Jones. This was my other arc. This book comes out, I think, February 24th. This book comes out, and if you don't know about Terry Jones, she's the author of American Marriage, a book that I haven't read yet, but I definitely have my eyes on it. This book is about two friends. Honestly, I forgot their names, but they came from a small town in Louisiana, Honeysuckle, and it just shows both of them are motherless, and it just shows the paths that they both went on. One ended up going to like HBCU, the other one ended up going down a different path, but it just shows you how her life turned out for them. And this is a book where I really, like I said, the only thing I said in my Goodreads review was this was a well-written book. I read this book at 4.25 stars. Now, it wasn't like an easy book. If you guys don't know, I'm not really like a historical fiction person. This book leans more historical fiction. So if you're someone that loves historical fiction, you would definitely enjoy this book. It never felt like one person was mentioned more than the other. And there was just good amount of symmetry. I love authors that, you know, can write about something that's not like popular. Like for me, I don't know what it means to like have grandparents that grew up in the 50s or 60s in the American South. But the way she wrote the book, there was a lot of like lingo and just writing in general that fleshes out the story and just makes you enjoy it regardless of what your thoughts are on historical fiction or the Southern time during that period. But this book, definitely enjoy it. I was on a roll with the whole friendships in books situation, and Kin as well as Somewhere South to Land were definitely two different books, but we're still exploring the same thing, which is friendship. So I highly recommend it if you guys are looking for friendship themed books in this new year. So the last book I read in the month of December was Clap When You Land. Oh, I read 2 Elizabeth Acevedo books this month. I didn't realize that. Well, Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I rated this book at 4 stars. This book was a little bit triggering for me. And that's not something that I'm willing to discuss much on this channel. I definitely enjoyed my time with this book. This was a book that was written in verse, and you could tell by the way it was narrated on audiobook. But I feel like Elizabeth Acevedo is like a really solid writer. While I had some issues about how they reacted about their father. Okay, the book is about this man that passes away going to the Dominican Republic. Their flight like crashes. He has basically 2 different families. One he spends the summers with and one he spends the rest of the year with in New York. And just both daughters didn't know about each other. Just messy, you know, men are just horrible sometimes, and this book it showed some of that. And the main thing is like, I didn't like that some parts of it that like showed him any kind of sympathy, because it's like, what does he deserve sympathy for? He did all that himself and continued to perpetuate the life that he was living until he, you know, it killed him. But either way, still a good book. I also had to remember that both of the girls in the book were YA, like they were young adults, like 16, 17, 18. So, you know, it's a different type of anger, especially since they both didn't know about each other. But either way, I enjoyed the book. It was a good way to like run out the year. I didn't even read any books for the last like 4 or 5 days of the year, but I did start a new book in the new year. So those were all the books I read in the month of December. Like I said, wasn't a bad reading month, but still something that I wanted to share with you guys about. If you guys have read any of these books, make sure you comment down below. And what was the main book that you read and enjoyed the most in December? Let me know down in the comments, and bye.